So admittedly, we're starting this class off on kind of a weird foot, with a very abstract discussion. We're not going to dig too deep into the very abstract parts of this, because, well, thinking about it too long kind of makes your head hurt. It's one of those really basic philosophical questions that you'd get annoyed if a 2-year-old kept asking you about, but even when you try to think about it on your own, it doesn't really have a very satisfying answer. Though we're going to see some pieces that hopefully make it a bit more satisfying than that. Anyway, let's get this idea of talking about our numeration systems started by thinking about something that hopefully everyone in here already knows. What this is. Hopefully you're thinking this is a trick question. It's too easy. That's the number 2. And it is the number 2. I'm not trying to fool you. I don't know why I picked the number 2, but I just did, because I don't know, it looks a little bit distinctive, or more distinctive than the way I draw the number 1, and it's pretty easy. But why is that the number 2? What is it that when people are trying to describe a count of things more than one, instead of just trying to draw their fingers like this or making 2 dots or something else, they settled on that squiggle. And they said this squiggle represents this amount of thing, and people listened to them. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer. And the truth is, there really isn't a very satisfying answer for why this represents the amount that we call 2, or why we even call that amount 2 instead of something else that fits a bit better with maybe these fingers or these knuckle bones or whatever it is you want to use to count things. And we'll see that there isn't just the one way to do it either. But the point is, numbers are somewhat obviously ingrained into human existence. Numbers are just a way of answering the question, how many of thing, or how much of thing, or how long is thing. We need to be able to describe an amount. Use a number for that. Where they come from, well, it's a little bit muddier, but that's the idea. And interestingly, we don't actually have a fixed answer for the very first time that humans thought to come up with something like that, to actually specifically count something and think of that as its own value. There's some evidence that it dates back to Africa about 40,000 years ago from a baboon bone found in the Limpopo mountain range of southern Africa with 29 tick marks on it that some believe represent the amount of time it had been since the last lunar cycle came around. That is, it was for tracking the phases of the moon. But, may or may not be true. There's another one that they found about 20,000 years later. Well, find it 20,000 years later, but it's carbon dated to them, called the Ishango bone. I don't remember exactly where that was found off the top of my head, but that one, it's got a bit more grouping on there. That maybe seems a bit more like they're actually counting something, but even so, we're not sure that they weren't just making some primitive art, or what they would have been counting even if they were counting. Point is, it's just kind of a thing that appears and makes sense. You can dig into the history of different ones in particular to find where they come from. But like I said, the idea of a number, even if this symbol to represent a specific count isn't obvious when you actually think about it, it is an obvious idea hidden underneath it. We want to know how much. If you want to go to the store, you want to know how many shoes you're looking to buy in a pair. Or if it has been less than a week since the last full moon, you might want to know that it has been 2 days since the last full moon for various reasons. I'm not going to judge why you want to know either of those things, but they're very natural questions to ask in different contexts, and that's what a number is for, is to be able to give an answer to that, whether it's 2 or dos in Japanese, or I think ni in dos in Spanish, ni in Japanese, I got ahead of myself, or any other number of languages where they still probably use this symbol, or maybe something similar to it, or maybe something very different, but it represents the same value. And if you want to take that idea and expand it I'm going to take those ideas of numbers and actually come up with a nice way of concisely describing all of them. That's where you're starting to talk about numerals, which are the actual symbols, and systems of numeration or numeration systems, which is that whole pattern for being able to get all of the things together in a nice, consistent, reliable way. That you know, in our system, 1 goes before 2, goes before 3, goes before 4, and so on. I'm going to stop there because I think you can trust me to be able to count from 2, but maybe not. If you really need to be sure, you can count on from 2. Although I think we all have better things to do with our time anyway. So we're going to look at here are some of these defining features of what makes our system, what our system is built on, along with where it comes from, because people might think that's not the English system. It's actually not. And then some of the defining features of our system in particular, like I said, where we're going to start by looking at how we define our pieces, our groupings, in terms of things that hopefully you have some familiarity with. Can't get my words right. Probably won't for most of the semester, but that's okay. This is math, not English. We can survive. Anyway, we're going to be looking at exponents next. I'll see you in the next video.